G'day folks, hope all is well. I today am in the heartland of Western Sydney, near the Blacktown area. I've come from the Penrith area today doing some work, and I'm yet to profile this beautiful one here, which has taken me a while to get around to, and one of the real what could you say, stalwart trees of Western Sydney. It's got a real prominence in the west on the Cumberland Plain, and it's a beautiful grey box, Eucalyptus moluccana. Just taken me a while to get round to it, but just in a park here with some bushland. But then we've got the bushland of the Cumberland Plain woodland. It's a very dry vegetation in Western Sydney, sort of slightly lower rainfall, although the rainfall's high enough. Probably talking about 800 mils a year, something like that. And you just get these areas where moluccana becomes incredibly dominant. And we've just got some beautiful remnant trees in this mowed grassy park. Just gonna have a look at this one over here. Moluccana, it can reach about, probably, I guess they get to about 25, 30 metres tall. They're pretty big if you see them that big. This one here is pushing well and truly over 20 metres, no problem at all. And the way to pick them is the way we pick a lot of boxes, is this really fine tessellated bark. It's sort of like a mosaic. It's a mosaic of fine tessellated pieces. And if you know Eucalyptus albans, I haven't made a video on that, that's known for having this sort of bark. So is Persistoana. Melliodora yellow box can have it a little bit, but moluccana is one of the ones that really puts it on. And so does its western sort of substitute called microcarpa out in the western and, well, sort of meant to say central parts of New South Wales. Moluccana out there will get replaced by microcarpa, but they've all got this sort of bark going on, these nice fibrous chunks. And when you go up to the branches, sort of like reminds me of Pilularis, the branches go bare. So they go bare, you get these ribbons hanging down. I'm going to try and get the sun out of the way. And then you got these nice creamy, dark cream, maybe even sort of lightish brown, but dark cream's a good way to describe them. Branches up the top. So always look for that with moluccana. Just the bark stopping up at the branch divisions, and a bit of ribbon, and then nice cream trunks after that. But there's some nice big, probably old trees in this reserve. I'll just go back to where I've got my material. Moluccana's got a pretty big range, but a lot of it is coastal. It's a New South Wales, Queensland tree. It's confined to those two states. In Western Sydney, you're getting down towards the towards the bottom of its range, though it goes right down to Nowra. So that's Nowra's about 2 hours south of here, mate. That's on the south coast, and that's the southern range. You can get sort of what would you say, west of there into a place called Bungonia National Park. That's sort of near Marulan and Goulburn. That's sort of, you'd be getting on right on the southern edge there in that part. It goes right up north, and it does go sort of a couple of 100 kilometres inland. It gets into the tablelands fringes in the southern part, and then it gets into the Hunter Valley, punches up through there, and then up north in New South Wales, it'll go out to areas like Tamworth and Armidale, Inverell. Those sort of, I guess you'd call, yeah, that would be definitely on the western slope. So as it goes north, it gets onto the western slopes. And then it goes right up into Queensland, and it goes as far as Cairns in Queensland, as far as I can see. And again, in Queensland, it will go a couple of 100 kilometres inland. So it's got a pretty big range. It's a real East Coast tree. Out here in Western Sydney, it grows on clay soil. It grows on what we call the Waiata Group shales. It does not grow on sandstone. It's not really a sandstone tree. I don't know across its range if it gets onto sandy soils, but in Sydney, you won't find it on the sandy country at all. It's a real strong, the soil here, if I dug a hole, it's really strong clay. And the sandstone, well, is probably well and truly buried under the clay there. It's a real clay soil. One of the things with moluccana is its juvenile foliage. This is what the juveniles look like, and they do remind me of sort of Pterodocornis. They get these big, fat, ovate juveniles. And the thing about moluccana, whether they're juvenile or adult leaves, they're nice and mid sort of olive green. So these ones are a little bit light green, but they're transitioning to olive green. And they're completely and totally concolorous. There's never a hint of any discoloration. They're just a nice mid-green to light green if they're in maybe more the juvenile phase, but when they get to the adult phase, they're just a nice olive green colour. So it's another thing for moluccana, it's just a beautiful mid-green leaves, no hint of blue at all in any way, shape or form. Now, I was going to say across its geographic range, it does, people reckon there's intergrades. There's moluccana albans intergrades, and there's possibly albans, moluccana microcarpa intergrades as well. So it's one of these things where, again, you can get some intergradation. And I've definitely seen some what we call moluccana albans intergrades around Scone in the Hunter Valley. That was a good place for them. But once again, I'm in the hot western sun here. But if you get hold of the juveniles, I'll just rip these ones off. They just can be beautifully big and ovate, sort of getting around 6 centimetres wide or more. I've seen them about 15 centimetres long. Quite conspicuous in the juvenile phase. Now, what I've let you down with today is the buds. What I've had trouble with moluccana in Western Sydney in the last couple of years collecting for workshops is getting hold of fertile material. It can be really hard to get fertile material for moluccana. To get hold of a ton of buds, I've found that really difficult over the last 3 years. And normally it's up very high and you need a real long pole saw to get it. I've been checking all these bits out on the tree to see if there's any sign of buds. I do have fruit. I've got plenty of fruit, so I'm happy with that. I just won't be able to show you the buds, so make sure you look those up online. They are described as being in 7s or more than 7. But most of the time they're in 7s, but I think they're in that 7 to 15 bucket. So just check the online resources. They're generally saying 7 or more than. But look, it's just one of these trees where I don't look at the buds very often. I look at the fruit, but because I find it interesting, but I just don't really look at the buds. But it would be good to have some, of course. But I just find it's one of those trees in its habitat that once you've got your eye in for it, the buds aren't really needed. I've managed to pull down, it's got fruit on it, so I'm going to call it adult foliage. Even though it was sort of hanging lower down and it's probably not as adult looking as I like, but when moluccana gets really long, really tall and nice adult foliage, it can go really narrow. It can sort of go narrow like Pterodocornis. It has nice sort of narrow foliage, sometimes narrow and long, but this is sort of a bit sort of intermediate. But once again, it's just a nice mid-green colour and it's totally concolorous. There's just no hint of discoloration there. The texture, it's very smooth. It's a nice smooth texture. It's almost a bit rubbery. And again, it's falling into that bucket of, it's not overly thin. You wouldn't call it papery thin, but it's not overly thick either. So a bit like Pterodocornis, the forest red gum, it's fallen into that sort of bucket of not too thin, not too thick. The Goldilocks zone. But it's got a really rubbery feel. It's sort of reminding me of a maybe a sort of garbage bag feel or something like that, a rubber glove maybe I use for another eucalypt. It's sort of really rubbery. If you bend them over, they do snap. You can see they do snap when you fold them over, but they're not really making a sound when I do that. They're just I'm sort of folding them, yeah, and then they're cracking. You can see they're cracking off as I fold them over, and these are nice fresh leaves. So that's what I like about moluccana, just the mid-green, the very mid-green. They're like, if we're gonna have a blue-green sort of spectrum, there's just no hint of blue. There's just a nice green colour. When you look at Eucalyptus albans, white box, that's got a really strong dash of blue in the leaves. Microcarpa, they're very green. That's how I pick them when I go out to central New South Wales. And Melliodora, they're bluey green as well. They've got a good hint of blue in them too. But moluccana is a very green leafed box. And here I've got the fruits, and I've got a lot, which I'm happy about. As I couldn't get buds, I got plenty of fruits. Now, what a lot of these boxes have, including albans and microcarpa and moluccana, they've got a nice sort of cup-shaped fruit like that. And what some people have told me, and I like it, these sort of things, is think wedding champagne glass. And I think that's a good description sometimes. I'm not saying these are totally showing that, but you get some and they just look completely like a wedding champagne glass. And I do like that description. You can see they've got a really long pedicel. That pedicel is well and truly, yeah, it's over. The phone's making it look a lot bigger than what they are, but these fruits I've got are probably about 6 mil long and probably about 5 mil wide, with a pedicel about 10 mil or thereabouts. And you can see it's a whole clustered branching here. These aren't in the leaf axils at all. There's a whole, bunch of them on a sort of inflorescence, or what we'd call a conflorescence. It's hard to really see the individual umbellasters here, but that one's got 5 and they're a bit all over the shop. That one's got 6 or so. So you've got a whole heap of umbellasters here arranged in a sort of messy sort of conflorescence. I'll just see what these ones are doing. These ones to me look a bit more mature. They're down in the branches, like down in sort of the branch axils and the leaf axils, but you can see they're all on a sort of secondary inflorescence structure. And maybe I haven't noticed that before with moluccana, but just hard to say that they're just individual in the leaf axils. They're sort of on their own sort of sprays here. So that might be one feature about them, or probably is one feature about them, I should say. But you can see the sort of, hopefully you can see the sort of wedding champagne glass flute there. And if you look at Eucalyptus albans, that's what they've got. But in Eucalyptus albans, they're on steroids. They're really big. They're much bigger than moluccana. Again, these guys are, probably 6-7 mil long, 5 mil wide, thereabouts. And you can just see that they're meant to be in individual clusters of 7 or more, but they're also clustered into secondary groups. I'll just juggle it and just get some more up this way. You might think I do, they look a little bit like Eucalyptus piperita. They got a little bit of a piperita look, but you won't find piperita growing here with these guys. Not sure if I've ever found moluccana and piperita growing together. That would be a first, I think. But that's a typical box fruit. That's what we call a typical box. It's got enclosed valves. They're enclosed. They're even a bit Carimbia-like. And I'm pretty sure they've got a sunken disc. So I'll see if we can look inside there. Yeah, it looks like the valves are well and truly inside and the disc is well and truly inside. That's what I associate with a box. So sunken disc, valves inside, and that nice sort of, yeah, champagne glass shape is how I describe them. When you get Albans, they're very champagne glassy. So that's what I'm always looking for with Moluccana. Like I've said, in the couple of previous years, I've just had trouble getting, I never can get a hold of a heap in flower or a heap in bud. We have had episodes in Western Sydney where all the Moluccana have been really sick. They've been sort of affected by, I think it's affected by a lerp, and they've defoliated a hell of a lot. But these trees here are looking pretty healthy. Very nice. You can get really dense stands of it out here in Western Sydney, especially in regenerating patches. You can just get copses of saplings, and I might just finish off by showing you that. I think I've got a good example over here. So Moluccana, it's definitely the dominant tree in this little park, and I've seen plenty of patches around Western Sydney where it just becomes dominant. But like the Angophora floribunda, it can form these young copses. And here's a sapling about 7 metres tall. You can see the trunk. The trunk's only about 10 centimetres wide, and it's already putting on the sort of tessellated bark. You can distinguish them from teraticornis saplings easy, which they might be growing next to, just on the bark and the green leaves up the top. And of course, look for the big adult trees around. But there's just a whole copse of them through this area in here, what we call a patch of Cumberland Plain woodland. Teraticornis is here too, but there's a lot more Moluccana. So as they're growing, this bark, it's looking a bit more pepperminty. It's looking very pepperminty actually, but it's going to get that nice tessellated bark as it gets to its full glory as a tree. So that's Eucalyptus Moluccana. Hopefully that one helps you. I'd say that would definitely be a sapling with juvenile foliage there, just a lot greener than teraticornis.